Joe, I think we're live. Maybe we're live. I don't care anymore if we're live.
We'll give it a shot. July 10th edition of the Holy Smokes podcast. Yours truly, Joe Ferraro, alongside Sean Ross Sapp, managing editor for Fightful MMA, Fightful Boxing, Fightful Wrestling, Fightful Everything. Make sure you do give him a follow online at Sean Ross Sapp. Yours truly at Showdown Joe. Lots to discuss in the world of mixed martial arts, and I'm sure we will have some professional wrestling sprinkled in there. Tons and tons of stuff went down at UFC 226, highlighted by Daniel Cormier, arguably the GOAT right now. We will discuss that, but he is now not only the light heavyweight champion of the world, he is the heavyweight champion of the world after defeating Stipe Miocic, who many consider the greatest heavyweight of all time. So, lots to discuss regarding that. And then after that, Brock Lesnar shows up into the cage, courtesy of Daniel Cormier calling him in. Brock is now back in the USADA pool, apparently going to be able to compete it's sometime early 2019. We will discuss that potential fight as well. What could be next for Daniel Cormier? We'll also discuss the co-main event that many are saying is one of the worst fights in MMA history or UFC history. I actually disagree because there's two that were worse, and we'll get into that as well. We talked about Paulo Costa many, many times, middleweight, leading up to this event here. When he first made his UFC debut, we informed everybody, pay attention to this kid because he's got some serious potential, and we saw what he did in the octagon this past week, and now people are waking up and seeing what he's worth. I know there's some bad stuff behind him. We'll talk about that as well. The TUF 27 finale went down one day earlier, and that was headlined by Israel Adesanya, who emerged victorious, who many people didn't realize how good this kid is. He is good. He is absolutely fantastic. We'll preview some of the Bellator cards. We'll talk about the UFC Hall of Fame ceremony. We'll do our previews and pros picks, courtesy of UFC BOISE. Is that how you say it, Sean?
Yeah.
BOISE, and Marion Reneau is going to join us. So, are we on? I don't think we're on YouTube.
We're not on YouTube.
Right now.
Piss off YouTube. Piss off Wirecast. We're live on Twitter and Periscope. That's what we're running on.
All right, then.
Yeah.
Get her done.
What do you want to talk about first? Today. Yeah, well, you know. So, what do we get into? Obviously, the biggest story: Daniel Cormier, Brock Lesnar, Stipe Miocic. We didn't have the opportunity to hear from you this weekend. Your thoughts on that main event?
We talked about it. Yeah, it still has me in awe because I'm so happy and so proud for Daniel Cormier. To be able to do what he did against Stipe Miocic is nothing short of absolutely awesome. But we knew this ahead of time. We knew if you go back and you look at what he did in the Strikeforce tournament as a heavyweight, he wins that tournament, but came to the UFC under the pretense that, you know what, his teammate, his training partner, Cain Velasquez, is to own that division. So Cain Velasquez is the heavyweight, and Daniel Cormier was, sent down to 205 pounds. Did what he had to do at 205 pounds minus John Jones. John Jones no longer in the picture. Cain Velasquez consistently injured. We've heard Sean Ross Sapp talk about that till we're blue in the face, on this podcast. So gives Daniel Cormier the opportunity to go back to probably where he wants to be. He doesn't have to cut all that weight and compete at heavyweight. Then he does what he did in less than a round. I mean, it's unbelievable. It's magical. It's fantastic. Just shows you how, with a dad bod, how incredible this guy actually is. And to do that and to be able to celebrate it.
A dad bod in Olympic level wrestling.
Yeah, just a little bit. Yeah, just apparently a really good wrestler, right? So it just goes to show you when you believe in yourself and what you can do, it's magical. It's fantastic. He did it, got to celebrate it with his family, then, grabs the microphone and goes WWE on us, calls in Brock Lesnar. Brock Lesnar more than happy to accommodate, pushes him halfway through the octagon, which is absolutely awesome. But
yes,
Daniel Cormier is far from scared of Brock Lesnar. He's not only not afraid of Brock Lesnar, all he sees in Brock Lesnar is two things. A, an opponent. B, the amount of dollar signs in his bank account would be absolutely huge. So Daniel Cormier, to me, whether he's the GOAT or not, will always be up for discussion because of the asterisk that is John Jones and the asterisk that John Jones is on performance-enhancing drugs when they compete. Where do you stand?
Yeah, and Daniel Cormier was able to accomplish something that John Jones hasn't. Now, the wild thing, a lot of people seem to think that John Jones might be over the hill by the time he gets back. Here's something to ponder, guys. Daniel Cormier, who just became UFC heavyweight champion and lost to John Jones twice, is 39. John Jones is 30 years old.
Yep.
That's nuts. That's nuts. So As far as Daniel Cormier, one thing I liked is that he said that he noticed when Miocic exits the clinch, he puts his hands down, and he capitalized on that.
Yeah.
That's his impeccable game planning is a reason why I was picking him over Stipe. Because I mentioned a lot of times when Stipe knocks you out, it's on short punches, he's retreating. If you're retreating and you're off balance like that, then Daniel Cormier is taking you down. That's that. He's such a much more high-level wrestler than a Fabricio Verdum, who was able to manage that, or even Alistair Overeem. This was an incredible moment, and I think it puts him in the conversation. I think that really launches him up there in the conversation. Now, here's the question that I have, Joe. What would heavyweight have looked like the last 3 or 4 years had Daniel Cormier been there? Because he only left because of his buddy Kane, who never fights. Would Miocic have this record? Would he have the title defense record right now, Joe, if he had stuck around?
It's tough to say, but it's difficult to predict. But based on what we just saw, the answer is no, right? Because Daniel Cormier would be in the heavyweight division doing what he's doing right now.
No, that's what I mean. Would Miocic or would Cormier have that record?
It's tough to say, right? Because you could lean towards yes, because the guy has never lost to anybody other than John Jones, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct.
He's never lost. Only John Jones is the one guy that has his number, right? Now, what Daniel Cormier has done has long been what guys like myself and yourself and many, 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 many other pundits and fans have truly believed is what John Jones should have been and should have done and should be right now.
Yeah.
But due to his own terrible decisions, is not. Is sitting on the sidelines, and someone else is living his dream. And no matter what John says about being able to defeat Daniel Cormier, whether you believe or not he was on performance-enhancing drugs, bottom line is John Jones is not competing. And a massive portion of his career is being taken away from him from his own doing. Whether it's an error right now, we can talk about USADA errors and whatever happened in his last fight, blah, blah, blah. But he's on the sidelines because of himself, technically speaking, while Daniel Cormier is living this incredible legacy and dream and may go down as the GOAT for the vast majority of the mixed martial MMA bubble. Right? It's crazy.
So another thing that I'm pondering, how long will it be until somebody breaks Miocic's record? Because it's not going to be Cormier. It sure as hell isn't going to be Lesnar. Now, the thing that I brought up on Saturday, in baseball, people ask, what's a record that can't be broken or won't be broken? And almost unanimously, you'll hear people say 2 no-hitters in a row because you'll have to throw 3. And Johnny Vandermeer threw 2.
Yeah.
At heavyweight, it took a long time, and it took some really good heavyweights until Miocic was able to get to 3. That was a record, that number 2, that nobody could get over, that hump, that I think it was Couture, Lesnar, and Sylvia maybe that held that record. It was a long time before Miocic got to 3. Now somebody's going to have to get 4 to unseat him. And the way, as often as heavyweights fight, we're talking like a 4 or 5 year trek at this point to get to 4. Because not only that, to break this record, Joe, you almost have to go undefeated as a heavyweight 5 or 6 years. Because you got to get to that title fight first. Then you got to win that title fight. You're looking at least 4 wins off the top of the bat right there, ideally, because usually people come into fights like this off a 3-fight winning streak. Then you got to win 4 more on top of that. That does not happen a lot at heavyweight.
No, it's going to be an extreme, especially with Daniel Cormier's age right now. It's going to be a challenge. This guy is one Brock Lesnar fight away from retirement, right? That's the final payday, right? Fighting John Jones at heavyweight for the title is that one payday. Do you think that third fight with John Jones at heavyweight for the heavyweight title, if it was to go down, could be a bigger payday for Daniel Cormier than the Brock Lesnar fight?
That's an interesting question because I don't know. First off, I don't know. I would believe that fight with Lesnar would do more pay-per-view buys because it's Lesnar. And Lesnar has traditionally been a bigger draw than John Jones. Here's the thing. I had my wrestling coach say, Jones beat Cormier twice. I don't want to see him fight again. I do. Because this is at heavyweight. This is where Cormier should have been all along. John Jones is going to have more rust, and it's the end of it's a different situation, and I want to see it. I really, really want to see it.
Other things to consider, okay? In that last fight with John Jones, Daniel Cormier was winning that fight. Daniel Cormier was getting, or at least it was close enough to where John was really having to work and really get his timing down. John did figure it out and landed that beautiful, excellent executed, Bret Hart, excellence of execution, high kick that ended Daniel Cormier's night.
Bret Hart never threw high kicks.
What's that?
Bret Hart.
He never threw high kicks. I'm just saying the execution was just magical.
I get it.
Right? The fact that he was able to do that says a lot about John Jones, but again, we can go back and say, you know what? He was on PEDs.
Yeah.
Right? So it takes a lot of things away from it, right? Not sure if you noticed, apparently there's a picture of Vitor Belfort looking pretty stacked. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I'm sure he is.
Yeah, well, we can get to that another time.
He's out of that pool.
Yeah.
Well, jumped into a big pool of syringes, probably. That's the pool he's in.
So, I mean, it's tough for me to look at Daniel Cormier and not be on a flip-flop, jumping on and off the fence or going from one side to the other and say, this guy's the GOAT. He's the GOAT. But there's that little asterisk to John Jones, man. That little asterisk to John Jones and the asterisk that John Jones was on PEDs, right? So, tough to say, but in terms of what he can do, if you guys pay attention to Fightful MMA, there's an article there. There's information that Daniel Cormier's next title defense will not be heavyweight. It'll actually be light heavyweight. Obviously, he wants to fight before he gets to fight Brock Lesnar. No matter what, if he loses that light heavyweight, it's irrelevant. He doesn't lose the heavyweight title. He still has to defend that title. And by the time he defends the light heavyweight title, it'll give him enough time to recover and be ready to defend the heavyweight title versus Brock Lesnar, which by all accounts is the next heavyweight title fight.
Yeah, and Curtis Blaydes told us he is not happy. He's very upset, and I had people ask me what was up with Curtis Blaydes in that interview. Well, he was fresh off of a flight from Vegas and insisted on doing the interview. And, I mean, he's had a stutter since he was a kid, so that's going to happen. People have stutters, guys. Doesn't mean he's punch drunk or anything like that. I sympathize with Curtis Blaydes, man. He deserves the title shot. And
yeah.
Volkov was closer to getting one than he was. Because Volkov was on standby for this fight. Clever, good, A-plus idea to keep Volkov on standby for this fight, by the way. I like that. We'll talk more about fighters on standby later. Brock Lesnar hit the cage, and one thing I've had a lot of people say is, oh, it's worked, it's scripted, it's blah, blah, blah. You don't have to script shit with Daniel Cormier. He knows what he's doing. Joe, what was the one thing that made him happy when you all were in Buffalo and you all had cameras in his faces and mics in his faces? He was miserable until he was miserable.
Until, was it Straw? Mike Straw?
Brandon Howard said, what'd you think of WrestleMania?
Bingo! Lights just, he was just like, what? What? Wrestling talk? Yeah. Like, he loved it. Absolutely loved it.
Spit out the gate and the attendance and all this stuff. Like, that's what he loves that. He enjoys it. It's an interest of his. And I think more from the promotion aspect because he gets it. He got in there. He cut a promo. I mean, how long did we hear him cut the John Jones promo in the cage where he said, get your shit together, come fight me? He gets it. He understands at a level that other people don't. And Brock Lesnar really gets it. You know, Brock Lesnar, historically, one of the 2-3 greatest draws in the history of combat sports, or MMA at least. Damn, man. They get it, and it works, and does it ruin the sanctity of the title? No, not really. Not really. Is it lame for some people? Yeah, it sure is, man. I feel bad for Curtis Blaydes. I don't feel as bad for Volkov. They'll fight in the fall, in December, somewhere. They should probably fight on that same card, to be honest with you. And
always the best to do that. It's always my favorite of always having.
Here's the thing. It might be best to have those two guys, Volkov and Blaydes, literally headline a show the following week. Because here's the situation we're in. Now, this is going to sound weird. Saturday, that fight happens. Cormier and Brock Lesnar. Assuming Daniel Cormier is not fighting again after that, assuming assuming that's his retirement fight, because he's put a hard March date on there, and I don't think he gets another fight in between January and March. On Monday, they announce, oh, by the way, Volkov versus Blaydes is for the heavyweight title now. Because Cormier is probably going to have to vacate it if he beats John Jones and he retires. That's a way they could do it and add some stakes, and it is such a UFC thing to do. It really is. Hey, by the way, I know you had a heavyweight fight with these two guys on Saturday. By the way, you're getting another one on Saturday, and it's two different guys. Yeah. I can see them doing that.
Yeah, I feel terrible for Curtis Blaydes. I definitely do. Volkov, I get, totally understand it, but I almost feel after watching the Ngannou Lewis fight that it was just gifted for Curtis Blaydes. Yeah. Here you go. You just catapulted up to title shot. Because those two guys, I don't know what they were thinking. Well, I shouldn't say anything about Derek Lewis. The guy was in pain. He had back spasm. I just know that.
It doesn't matter. He's been told lose 25 pounds and stretch your back, and he hasn't done it.
Good point. Very good point. Yep, I'm not going to argue that. You're bang on.
Now, to be fair, when you're going in there and you're getting the amount of money that he got for that show, and I think he got, let me see how much. It was a lot.
Yep.
Derek Lewis got $260,000 to throw about 10 leg kicks.
Yeah. And Ngannou got 100.
I take that deal every day with back spasms.
Yeah.
Especially in heavyweight, man. And he had that one loss last year, and has since then came back, and he's made some money, man. Assuming that he had the deal that he has in place now, if he made $200,000 for his February fight against Tybura and $200,000 against Ngannou, you're looking at he's made over $500,000 this year already between Reebok and bonuses and that.
And he's 130 for this fight here. So before that was probably 120 or 100. Yeah.
All right, what did we say last week? I got 5 on it. Derek Lewis.
Yeah.
What did we say last week? I got 5 on it. Daniel Cormier. What did we say last week? I got 5 on it. Was it Pacoda? I said that about. I said that about Uriah Hall too, and that almost. Hey, buddy, that Uriah Hall or Cormier Lewis parlay I was talking about almost came to fruition. Let's talk before we get into that. This Ngannou Lewis fight. The only word I can use for it is flaccid. Just flaccid. I wish this fight, I'm convinced that John Jones is a time traveler and that he went forward in time, and this fight made him so flaccid that he had to go get gas station dick pills. That's what happened. That's exactly what happened. I've solved it. John Jones, I figured out your defense. USADA will understand. Hit me up.
Done.
This fight sucked ass.
Yeah. Well, I might go on a bit of a rant here that may end up costing me some fans. May or may not. Whatever, it is what it is. I'm just going to tell you how, as much as I can from what I know. We don't often side with Dana White. I don't often side with Dana White. I understand when Dana White says certain things, but I can assure you that when Dana White had mentioned that Francis Ngannou has an ego problem, I was watching and just naturally, without any effort, was just going, yep, because in my experience with Ngannou, and I'm not asking people to go and follow who I follow and who I unfollow on social media, but I unfollowed Francis Ngannou a very long time ago. This is a guy who I met in Florida, courtesy of Kamaru Usman, who I thought was a certain type of person. Quickly found out he wasn't, and had no business, could care less, following him anymore.
I mentioned this on the post show. In the lead up to the Miocic fight, they had set up this PR thing where he would meet with 76ers center Joel Embiid. I think they're both from Cameroon or whatever, wherever the hell they're from. I don't know. But Francis Ngannou's first line of thought in, hey, I'm meeting this guy, this celebrity, it's good crossover PR, it's good for my country, is him looking at the guy and saying, I want to fight this guy. He said that. The first fucking words out of his mouth were, I want to fight this guy. Big 7 foot tall, untrained guy okay, cool, man. Who does that? Who acts like that? Who behaves like that? It was real weird, man. It was real weird. And so in his last performance, it was very clear he thought he was going to walk in and knock out Miocic and didn't prepare accordingly. In this fight, I don't know if he prepared accordingly or not because I didn't see him do anything. It was a horrible performance. It was the worst possible performance he could have after the performance that he had against Miocic.
We thought after the Miocic fight, he would, it's a live and learn scenario.
Yeah.
Because he publicly stated he made mistakes and didn't believe that Miocic was that good. And then we find out from Dana White at this post-fight press conference that in the middle of training camp, he took off and went to France and barely trained for the Miocic fight. Now, if that's not ego, if that's not, well, you believe in yourself way too much, I don't think you realize who you're getting into the cage with, that's another story altogether. So in terms of Ngannou, I stopped caring about him as a human being a long time ago and only focused on him being a fighter and appreciating the damage and the destruction he would bring to the octagon and the holy smokes, this guy's incredible, he'll knock your head off, look at what he did to Overeem, that was the scariest knockout, I thought Overeem was dead type of angle. But from a human being perspective, could care less, just can completely care less. He showed his true colors to a lot of people a while ago. All the power to you. And it's funny because I'm the last person to believe in karma. I don't believe in karma. But it's funny when it actually rears its ugly head. It's like, well, maybe karma's real, right? Because now you saw it. Because I kind of gave everybody the hint during last week's podcast. We were talking about Ngannou and how this and that and blah, blah, he's going to get this win, blah, blah. And I posed the question to you and everyone in the live chat. And I specifically said, what are we all prepared to do should Ngannou lose this fight? And it was just like we were brushing it off, right? And I just thought to myself, this is a guy that's got a lot to learn about life. He's been through hell. I get it. I respect it. I understand it. I empathize. I sympathize what he went through prior to becoming a UFC fighter. But he's forgotten, in my opinion, only my opinion, not Sean Ross Sapp's, not Fightful, not Jimmy Van's. My opinion, I think he forgot where he came from. Completely forgot and lost a lot of humility. And the importance of being humble from where he came from, because he's done a lot of things on and off the record that I was like, you know what? He
had so much goodwill that he wasted, I think, in these last two performances.
Yeah.
Some good performances were Mike Perry against Paul Felder. Now, Paul Felder jumping up in weight, but good win from Mike Perry. Khalil Roundtree. I said I thought he was going to be too well-rounded for Saki. I didn't think that well-roundedness would result in a right straight down the pipe that flattened Saki. That was awesome. It seems like Roundtree is finally reaching some of that potential and hype that he had back when he was 25, 26 years old. And it's finally coming at over the last year and a half, because he stepped into the UFC. He lost 2 straight fights. He lost once on The Ultimate Fighter. I mean, and I think, oh man, 9 months he lost 3 fights, and now he's on a 4-fight unbeaten streak because the guy that beat him in December tested positive for clomiphene. So he's doing pretty well now. Also on this show, Melender over Max Griffin, whatever. Drakkar Klose over Lando Venata. Lando's got to pick up a win if he wants to keep his goodwill as well. Dan Hooker, his hype train continues with a knockout of Gilbert Burns. Of those fights I mentioned, which stood out to you? Because we also have some higher profile fights on this show to go through.
The one that stood out to me, well, Dan Hooker and his post-fight interview was golden. Like, you don't go and knock out... Gilbert Burns is a bad man, right? And you beat him in 2 minutes and 28 seconds. And then I think it was Dan Hooker's post-fight interview where he says, I can't even remember the exact quote, I'm so sorry, but it had to do with something that the UFC is breaking a health and safety standard by putting these guys against me. It's just golden. Just complete and utter gold. I mean, is it really a hype train now with Dan Hooker? Because he's proven it time and time again. Like, this guy's just fantastic. But Khalil Roundtree, like, the only people that would have told you he was going to defeat Gokensaki with a straight left down the middle would have been his coaches, his trainers, and any one of his teammates, and maybe his family. That is it. The rest of the world was like, Khalil, under no circumstances do you stand and trade with this guy. You take him down to the ground, you take him out of his element, and you ground and pound him, or you look for a submission. Do not stand and trade with this guy. Well, 96 seconds later, he proved everybody wrong. So, is this Gokhan Saki that completely had zero understanding? All he did is he said, I watched the first 30 seconds to 1 minute of watching Khalil Roundtree strike. He found 30 holes in his game.
Well, that's cool. Khalil Roundtree found a hole in his game.
Yeah. Right? So, kudos to Khalil. Good job.
Anthony Pettis picked up a much-needed win over Michael Chiesa. Chiesa moving up to 170 because he missed weight. So, Pettis, and I mean this was a big win for Anthony Pettis. He made $289,000, including the amount that Chiesa had to forfeit. Then he got $50,000 on top of that. Oh yeah, that's a big win in the division. He keeps himself relevant because it's been a long time since we've seen Anthony Pettis win 2 out of 3 even at lightweight. It's been his 2013 to 2015 run. He needed this win. Michael Chiesa moving on up, but that triangle armbar, it was smooth, man. Good for Anthony Pettis and Michael Chiesa for saying, Conor McGregor cost me a title shot. Well, first off, no, he didn't. He cost you a fight, and that sucks. But no, he didn't cost you a title fight. And also, were you going to miss weight for the title fight, too? How was that going to work? Him being at welterweight, sure, why not?
Yeah, go ahead. I've never been that much of a fan of Michael Chiesa anyways. Again, go back to my Ngannou comment. You know, some guys forget where they came from and forget, you know, life is too short to all of a sudden have this ego sort of thing. Chiesa is one of those guys, in my opinion, in my experience with him. You know, he was one guy at one point, and now he's this completely other guy. And I was like, yeah. No. I'm older than you. You do whatever you think it needs to be.
Anybody who goes off the deep end about somebody saying their mom is going to be at the show, man. Rafael Assunção has won 11 of 12. The sad thing is he's probably not getting a title shot until 2019.
Unfortunately, yeah.
Marlon Moraes is there. Rafael Assunção is there. Meanwhile, Cody fucking Garbrandt is getting the title shot. Cody Garbrandt, who has not fought since he lost his title, nor did he ever successfully defend his title. But Assunção did exactly what Assunção should have done. And man, here's the thing. When Fightful launched, this was a talking point for me. When he came in and he fought TJ Dillashaw, I said, man, he's missed a year and a half. He's coming off of a bad foot injury. How is he going to rebound in this division, especially against Dillashaw? Against Dillashaw, he didn't rebound that well. However, against Aljamain Sterling, Marlon Moraes, arguably Marlon Moraes, I think that Moraes won that fight. Matt Lopez and Rob Font, he sure as hell rebounded. And if he keeps winning, he'll keep putting his name in that conversation. The Marlon Moraes thing, man, that's a tough one because he technically won that fight, but everybody knows he didn't win that fight. Meanwhile, he's split 2 with TJ Dillashaw. He is about as in limbo as you can possibly be with this type of record.
The only reason why he hasn't gotten a title shot is because he's a nice guy.
Fair.
Right? They want guys that are going to disturb the force, disturb the peace, disturb the pot, move that needle. And Assunção, despite his skill level, despite he even said, I'm not finishing guys, but I'm winning, just isn't that guy. I mean, have you ever met him, Junior, and Freddie?
No.
They're all three of them. Well, Junior, I don't know as well as Freddie and Rafael. Man, these guys are just gems. They're gentlemen. They're great guys who just happen to be professional mixed martial artists, right? It just doesn't rock the boat. And in this day and age, whether you look at Daniel Cormier, whether you look at from the Chael Sonnen to the Tito Ortiz back in the day to, you know, Conor McGregor to all these guys, you know, Derek Lewis, if you're not winning by spectacular fashion, i.e. Francis Ngannou, or you're not rocking the boat, causing havoc, you're just not going to get that title shot unless there's nobody in front of you, right? So I feel bad for the guy. He deserves it. No ifs, ands, or buts. especially defeated Rob Font, on 3 straight scorecards, and I scored 30-27 as well. It was a dominating performance. He's just not doing what he needs to do. Can we go back to Anthony Pettis for one moment?
Sure.
What did you make when they were talking about how Anthony, explicitly told the broadcast talent that I made a mistake with all this wrestling stuff and trying to do this wrestling and wrestling this and wrestling that. I've abandoned it. I'm going to go back to what I do best, which is my striking and my submission game. Forget about the wrestling. You take me down on the ground, I'm going to submit you. You can't take me down on the ground, I'm going to outstrike you. When I first heard that, I was like, oh, buddy, I don't think you want to go to the ground with Chiesa, although you do have the skills to prove otherwise. And then he goes and does this. He outstruck Chiesa, and he obviously outgrappled him.
Well, I think it's funny where Pettis, who I think may have gotten his black belt this weekend, he was there with Karen Bryant, who said, "You tapped out the jiu-jitsu guy. How'd you do that?" And I looked, and I think Chiesa's a purple belt. But I'm like, far be it from me to compare in-cage grappling to jiu-jitsu, but I'm like, what? Okay, Karen. But also, I was reminded of the time that Karen Bryant tried to hug Ronda Rousey after one of her fights, and Ronda Rousey left her out in the cold. We'll talk more about Rousey a little bit later, but that was just a couple of KB-related things. But the Pettis thing, man, he's been through ups and downs, and if he thinks this is what's going to work out for him, and it does, then far be it for me to say, oh, no, don't do that. Don't do that thing that worked for you for, 7 years and made you lightweight champion, while apparently you tried to change that up and you almost got bounced out of the UFC. So,
yeah, I listen, great guy. I wish him all the best. When he's on, man, he's exciting. He finishes people. Obviously, we can talk about the Matrix kick till we're blue in the face as well, but when he's on, he's on. He looks fantastic. So we'll see.
Vinny Fernandez says Mariah is getting the next shot. Don't be so sure. Don't be so sure. If Cody Garbrandt wins, I do not doubt that they would run back Dillashaw Garbrandt again, and somehow factor Dominic Cruz in there as a special guest referee just to do it.
Hey, where did you see Vinny's comment? Is it on the Twitter site?
It's on Periscope. Yes.
Oh, Periscope.
So, gotcha. Paulo Costa won his 4th straight UFC fight. He went 1-1 in TUF, but he's still undefeated professionally, 12-0. I think they can go and they can headline a Brazil card with this guy. This was a good fight, the type of fight. Boy, I just want to say one thing. Uriah Hall's jab was real nice in this fight. You see that he has the tools. And, part of this makes me think, would he be a great coach or a terrible coach? Because the thing is, you know that he has the tools to do so many of these great things. It's just very rarely does he put them all together. But that jab, he was spamming the jab.
Yeah, pop,
over and over.
Pop.
Boy, this is a good fight. Costa was able to overcome some adversity. TKO'd a guy in Uriah Hall, who's a top 10 guy. Shouldn't have been a top 10 guy, but whatever. And he did the same to Johnny Hendricks. I mean, he retired Johnny Hendricks for now.
Who was running the Twitter account that night? Wasn't
Kyler
you, right?
James, I think.
Some of the tweets were just like, what are you doing? It was awesome.
Well, Paulo's going to pop up probably to number 9, probably number 8 since Tavares lost.
Yeah.
But that was a good performance from him. Let's keep it within that middleweight division. Also, probably a top 10 guy now is Israel Adesanya, who defeated number 8 Brad Tavares. I look at the arc that MVP has been on, and he's been a prospect for 7 goddamn years. Israel Adesanya has been a prospect fairly recently, and he's like, I don't care if I didn't have a great performance last time. Give me number 8, Brad Tavares. Oh, and he just dominated Brad Tavares in the only thing worth a shit on that TUF finale show, besides watching Roxanne Modafferi elbow someone into oblivion, was Israel Adesanya's performance. That show sucked. It was a trash fire show. And you know how, Joe Silva used to always say, if I don't know it's going to be good, you don't know it's going to... Yeah, I knew this fucking show was going to suck. I knew it was going to suck. Trezano and Giannetti. Katona and Cuccinello. DiCirio and Marquez. Caceres Bravo. Modafferi Honchak. That is what props up your main event. I'm just sitting here thinking, damn, bro. You couldn't have taken a Sun South Font and thrown it on the co-main? You couldn't have put Hooker Burns on that? I will be so excited when TUF ends. I will be happier than a pig in shit.
No, one more season to go.
Doesn't exist anymore.
Hey, are you cursing because we're not on YouTube?
I'm cursing because you know what? It's funny. I was gonna take the Matt Riddle advice of make your curse words mean something.
Okay.
I can't. Not after this weekend, man. Not after this weekend.
There was some weird stuff on YouTube, and Sean Ross Sapp is losing his marbles. By the way, I watched the comedian. I forgot his name on Netflix. I watched his special, and he did the same thing that you do whenever you lose your marbles. You kind of take your headphones off and move your head away from the microphone and just yell at the top of your lungs. Every time he did that, Sean, I was howling. Everyone tuned in right now and listening later, I'm like, that's Sean. And I started howling to the point my son's like, what are you laughing at so funny? Like, it's funny, right? I'm like, this is Sean. That anytime anyone does this now, it's just classic. So, yeah. But this card, like you said, didn't have much star power, and it was what it was expected. We have one more season of The Ultimate Fighter, obviously with Bobby Knuckles on one side, middleweight champ, and Kelvin Gastelum on the other side. It'll be the final season of TUF. I don't know how much love they're going to put into the production on this. I assume it's going to be good, but yeah, Robert Whittaker, his one final push, I guess, but he's fine enough to get enough and good pushes in terms of pay-per-views. But when is that airing? Is that airing in September, October, right?
Yeah, some shit like that.
Yeah, that's it. I don't think
Vinny Fernando says Pena would have won the show if he didn't break his foot. I don't understand the reference because I don't watch the show.
Yeah.
There's no point in me watching the show. None. Trash.
It's gone stale. It's gone. I didn't watch 1 minute of the season. I didn't watch any of the fights because I just followed the timeline, and when it got to the Ultimate Fighter finale, I'm like, no. Unless something happens that raises my awareness that I should be watching, there's nothing that caught my attention for, I think, the last bunch of Ultimate Fighter seasons. I didn't even watch the Conor McGregor Uriah Faber season. I was like, I just don't care. It's not, I would rather be told, hey, you know what, watch this Titan FC event or this other mixed martial arts event or blah, blah, because that's where the fighters are coming from. I don't need them to be part of a reality show anymore. It's done.
I only watched TUF 18 because a person that I knew was on the show. That's it. Other than that, I haven't watched it since 10. So, UFC Hall of Fame.
Oh, Sean, I'm told, oh, by the way, a Canadian won the Ultimate Fighter on Saturday or on Friday. I'm like, huh?
Yeah, Canadian with an Irish accent. There you go.
Yeah. Never heard of him. Don't know about him. Wish him all the best. Would love to promote him. Oh, my TV show's not on the air anymore. Okay.
To be fair, a Canadian with an Irish accent also won the eating contest at last year's Blue Jays game, if you remember. In Nicola.
She did. She did win, didn't she?
She did.
She recovered.
So, what is it?
She recovered.
Oh, yeah, barely. So, UFC Hall of Fame, Ronda Rousey inducted, hit the bricks right after and wrestled the next day. Wasn't at UFC 226. Got out of there. The speech was short. Honestly, this was exactly how I want WWE Hall of Fame to be. WWE Hall of Fame goes 5 hours. This one went 2. This was great. It was awesome. It was to the point. I thought Rousey came off very well, but your thoughts on UFC's Hall of Fame presentation? I don't know how much of it you saw, but also some of the inductions. Let's talk about some of the inductions. Just clips.
I saw a bunch of clips. Other than that,
you don't need to see more.
No. I'm uber happy for Ronda. Uber happy for everybody that gets in there. It's just it's great. I wish we had a mixed martial arts Hall of Fame, not necessarily a UFC Hall of Fame. There's a big difference because at the top of my list is John McCarthy. That just goes without saying.
Well, he could end up in the contributor wing because they do have the contributor wing. Art Davey was in there. What did you think of his addition?
Well, yeah, if it wasn't for his crazy gong show of a mind to risk it all back then, we wouldn't be talking about it today.
Yeah. Mauricio Shogun Hua against Dan Henderson. So my thing with this is, it was an awesome fight, one of the greatest fights of all time. They didn't give this wing an induction last year and in 2014, but other ones are Hughes Trigg, Griffin Bonner, Coleman Williams. What I liked about this kind of prior was that at least one of the people in each one of these probably wouldn't have been in the Hall of Fame otherwise. Like, Bonner's not making it in, Trigg's probably not making it in, and Williams probably isn't making it in. And I like that. Both of these guys are getting in the Hall of Fame by themselves. In fact, Shogun might fight for the title this year, for the love of God.
Well, that's who Daniel wants.
And I don't blame him. I don't blame him at all. So that fight, more than worth it. But I don't know if you agree on that approach that I mentioned. Like, I think it would make a little bit more sense to have somebody in there who wouldn't get in there otherwise.
Yeah, no, I don't mind it. I don't mind it. I mean, I like the fact. See, the question is when Daniel Cormier comes out and says, "I want to fight Shogun," that's a champion. That goes back to when Anderson Silva was in his prime, calling out Michael Bisping, who had no business getting a title shot back then. It's the champion saying, "Nah, it's an easier fight. It's an easy payday," and I can, for Daniel Cormier, he's probably thinking, not only can I beat him, that looks great on my legacy, beating Shogun, right? Because not everybody will potentially think that Shogun is not the same Shogun who was killing it in Pride.
Yeah.
Right? So, and, even when he became the world champion here, it took a bit of work, right? So I get it, but it makes sense. I mean, you and I would love to see Cormier and Shogun, because Shogun's there. Like, believe it or not, this guy
he's
getting
there.
a title shot. Right?
And that's why it bothered me so much that they moved Ozdemir out of that fight, and I'm like, Shogun should be closer. But I get it. Ozdemir and Gustafsson are around a little bit longer. Maybe. I don't know how long Gustafsson will fight.
Shogun's fighting Anthony Smith right now.
I'd be shocked if the Ozdemir-Gustafsson fight actually ends up happening. Also, Ronda Rousey makes it into the modern era wing. Yeah, of course. And I think it's a good way to kind of move past Ronda Rousey, too. Even though most people already did, it's a good way to close the Ronda Rousey MMA book.
It's the ultimate way.
Without having people having to do the Carano shit, like in 6 years. Oh, she hasn't fought in 6 years. Should she come back and fight? She's in the Hall of Fame. Not as likely to happen.
Yeah, no, it's so fantastic. She'll always go down in history as this trailblazing pioneer. No ifs, ands, or buts. Again, we can tie this into the Rafael Assunção argument that if he could figure out some way to catch Dana White's attention, he'll get that title shot, or Sean Shelby's, or McNainard's, right? It's Ronda Rousey was that lightning in a bottle, perfect time, able to convince Dana White otherwise that women belong in the UFC, women belong in mixed martial arts, and look at what it's done for the sport. So, have you had a conversation with anyone saying that Ronda Rousey doesn't belong in there?
Some idiots that don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah,
and they want to be snarky assholes.
Yeah, I mean, it's like in real life when I have conversations with people, whether it's UFC or mixed martial arts related, or soccer related, or just life in general related. I've it's been a good 4 or 5 years now. Well, I'll have a conversation with someone, and something so stupid comes out of their mouth where it's just they're adamant and passionate about it. And I don't even reply, Sean. I just like, oh yeah, cool. I'm going this way, this conversation.
Yeah.
And I can't sit there and have a conversation with someone who's so lost. If you came to my face, anybody, and said, Ronda Rousey does not belong in the UFC Hall of Fame, conversation over.
That's it.
Walking away, yeah, oh, cool. Thumbs up, bro. Ma'am, sis, gotta go.
Speaking of pioneers, Matt Serra got inducted, but in the pioneers wing. That's a little curious to me. He fought in 1999, which is fairly early days, but didn't fight in the UFC to 2001, and didn't enjoy any real semblance of success until much, much later, the TUF era. Now, here's the thing. As if you're talking, does he belong in the Hall of Fame? If Maurice Smith is in there, then Matt Serra's in there. Maurice Smith was a 14-14 MMA fighter and won the UFC heavyweight title, defended it once against Tank Abbott, and then lost it. So I'm fine with Matt Serra being in there, especially if you're using the WWE method as your benchmark. But him as a pioneer, what do you think of that definition? Does he fit that definition?
No.
I didn't think so either.
No, he's not a pioneer. What he did at UFC 69 versus George St. Pierre it was UFC 69, right? I think it was the stuff of legend. It's Rocky Balboa-ish, despite George George didn't respect Matt, didn't even barely train for that fight. Got served a nice piece of humble pie.
Sarah won only one fight after that.
Yeah.
Isn't that wild?
Yeah. The other thing we've got to take into consideration here is, Dana White absolutely loves Matt Serra, right? Like, just adores him and thinks he's an absolute disaster, because Matt Serra is a disaster. That guy will literally make you pee your pants. That's how funny he is. Half the stuff that comes out of his mouth, half the stuff that he does in public, Sean, you'll die. Like, you'll die. Like, the way he treated my team and we went down to the gym, especially with Ray Longo, those two guys are something. Those guys need their own reality show. They need their own podcast. They're crazy. But he's close with Dana White, obviously, and that kind of gave him some credence to get in there, right? Do I think he's a pioneer? Not necessarily. Does he deserve to be in there? He won the world title. Ballsy enough to defend it in George St. Pierre's hometown, UFC 83, right? So, yeah. Kudos to him. All the power to him.
I gotta admit, I am very excited for the show in Boise. It's a good card. Like, the first fight is Aguilar-Escobel. You have Carmouche and Jennifer Maia. Justin Scoggins on the show. You got Volkanovski against Elkins. That is such an underrated fight. Wineland, Alejandro Perez. But then on that main card, listen to this main card. Randy Brown, Nico Price, whatever. You got Zingano versus Reneau. Jury versus Chad Mendez. Dennis Bermudez and Rick Glenn. Northcutt versus Atau. Junior Dos Santos against the guy I've been touting forever. Blagoy Ivanov. Let's hear first off from Marion Reneau, who will be on this show.
And she's a well-rounded opponent as well. I mean, she does have ground and wrestling, and her striking is more Muay Thai based, but it is very good. So it's one of those things that, hey, I'm taking what they're giving me only because there was nobody else available at the time. I think Ketlin at the time was injured, and other girls had things already booked, and I'm not sure what's going on with Jermaine. So it's just, it was the only thing available, or I would have to wait until the end of the year, and I wanted to stay active.
And how much more is it difficult where you have, fighters in the bantamweight division, dropping down, or, in some cases they're moving up? Like, has that made things more complicated in terms of booking fights?
It has, just because I'm at a point where I want to fight eventually for the title. I'm at a point where, that's my main goal. Like, I'm knocking them down as I come, just because that's my goal. Obviously, that's everybody's goal. And it's hard when girls are dropping from the top 10 and then there's nobody available. I mean, Juliana Pena just had a baby. Holly was fighting at 145. Me and Sarah were booked, but we don't know what's going on with Jermaine, and she's up there too. So it's just kind of like, what's going on with the division? Can we get it settled down? Can we get it back on top? Can we get it back on track? So I'm hoping we can.
Yeah. How do you see this fight playing out on July 14th? I mean, you're going to get your hand raised, otherwise you wouldn't have taken the fight, but how do you see it unfolding?
It's going to be a battle between two badass moms, for sure.
I like that. That's awesome.
Yeah. So it's going to be a battle, and it's going to be nonstop. That's going to be both of us, nonstop. Obviously, I feel I'm going to get my hand raised. She feels she's going to get her hand raised. So it's just whoever wants it more.
There's a lot of confusion right now, both in the 145 division and in the 135 division as far as title shots go. Do you feel like a win here against Kat Zingano gets you that title shot?
Ideally.
Yeah.
Ideally, that would probably make the most sense. But right now my focus is 100% on Kat, so I'm not trying to think anything past that or past my opponent. I have to knock down what's in front of me, and Kat right now is in front of me. I need to knock that down and jump through one more hoop, and hopefully, it'll fall where it's supposed to fall.
So let's talk about this show, and it's a damn good one. You got Eddie Wineland, who keeps finding himself in the top 15. He's on the show. Justin Scoggins, who is potential unfulfilled right now, on the show. Liz Carmouche, who I'm actually looking forward to make a bit of a run in this division, because I feel like I had her winning over Alexis Davis. Can't remember how that went. But also you have Jessica Aguilar, who if she doesn't win, you have to wonder what's left for her in the UFC at the very least. I'm sure Invicta would love to book her 6 times a year, every show that they have.
Yeah, she's got to make the weight though. Not go through that crap again.
Yeah, exactly. So we're gonna find out something about Aguilar. Can she make the weight? Can she still compete? And I mean, my God, she's had like every fight pulled. There's been trouble with Jessica Aguilar's UFC career, from injuries to weigh-in issues to just performance. I'm looking forward to that. Her and Carmouche on the Fight Pass prelims. But outside of all that stuff, Eddie Wineland-Perez, that's a good fight. Darren Elkins versus Alexander Volkanovski. Holy shit. That should have been on the TUF show last Friday. Why not, man? Elkins is 6-0 or 6 in a row. Volkanovski won 4 in a row. I'm ready for this fight. This is a good fight that nobody's talking about, Joe.
Of course. It's just the way it is, man. It's the way this mixed martial arts bubble is working right now. It's still no matter what. Even if you're a fringe fan on the outside, you don't know who Alexander Volkanovski is. It's Darren Elkins. If you paid attention to what Elkins has done over his past few fights, you just want to watch. Not to see him get his ass handed to him and then come back and win. The dude just doesn't go away. You know, it's not. I'm not saying he's like. It's like another version of Cowboy Cerrone. Like a guy just keeps fighting and fighting, will not go away. So this is going to be a fantastic fight. 145 pounds. I can't wait to see it go down.
How about this? Volkanovski is a minus 345. Elkins plus 285. I got 5 on it.
You have to put 5 on it. Anytime you see Darren Elkins as an underdog, just put 5 on it. Do everybody a favor and put 5 on it.
Go ahead and do it. Go ahead and do it. What else we got on this show, at least from a betting perspective? Scoggins at a plus 138. To be honest with you, that's not enough for me to put 5 on it. It really isn't. Wineland at plus 180 might be. Might be. Here's one that I got 5 on. Miles Jury plus 185. Chad Mendes minus 225. To me, that's 5 on it worthy because we don't know what the hell Chad Mendes is going to look like. He's going to walk in there covered head to toe with psoriasis, not knowing what to do. And I've got psoriasis. It sucks. He can't even take care of that shit anymore.
For the record, I don't have psoriasis. And yes, you put 5 on Miles Jury because we don't know what Chad Mendes is going to bring to the cage. He hasn't competed since 1984. So it's been a while. We don't know exactly what he's going to be. He's not going to be the same Chad Mendes as before. He might be, maybe in the first round, and because they're smaller fighters, maybe the second round. But Miles Jury brings the heat. Miles Jury is going to have reach here, and if Miles Jury, and what are you going to do? Take down Miles Jury? Okay, take him down. Miles Jury's a black belt in jiu-jitsu, right? Provided he doesn't get concussed. Chad Mendes is in a lot of trouble in this fight. And being a minus 225 favorite, I like the Miles Jury number, right? Now, for all we know, the bookies who set the odds and the fans that continue to put money on Chad Mendes, driving these two guys further apart in the odds, maybe they know something we don't, Sean. But, yeah, I got 5 on Miles Jury for sure.
This show is real good. That Jury-Mendes fight is good out of curiosity. We heard from Marion Reneau. This is a big fight for her, too, even though she has earned a title shot, in my estimation, against Amanda Nunes. It should be her. I don't know what the hell's going on with Amanda Nunes.
It's a pick and fight, too, by the way.
Yeah. Against
Zingano. Yeah.
So, Nunes beat Pennington a couple months ago, but we haven't really heard what's going to go on with her. No word on Cyborg. But Zingano's lost 3 fights in a row. To me, I don't know why you book this shit. Why would you book Cat Zingano has not won in 4 years against Marion Reneau, who is riding a 4-fight unbeaten streak. Well, first off, I have Reneau winning the fight. But this is puzzling booking to me. Oh, I mean, I'm excited for the fight, but it's puzzling. Weird.
I don't get half the bookings they do anyways, right? And it goes back to the conversation we had months ago about how I wish there was a weird sort of transparency or a bracket to let us know the meaning behind fights. What is the meaning behind this fight? And if the UFC would just simply adopt that, whether they go to ESPN does it, but ESPN may not have a say whatsoever in the UFC matchmaking, which I doubt. But the UFC could do themselves a massive favor. So could Bellator, so could Titan and Ryzen and blah, 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 just to make things far more transparent, to learn from the stick and ball sports, the big four sports, and look and say, this is a meaningful fight because, not just a random fight for no reason. This to me seems like a random fight for no reason, other than the fact that if Reneau can get a victory, it solidifies her title shot.
I'll tell you one I got 10 on. Rick Glenn and Dennis Bermudez. Bermudez, keep in mind, Bermudez has lost 3 fights in a row. He is 2-5 in his last 7. He currently sits at a minus 245, while Rick Glenn is a plus 205. I'll take that one. Also, I got 5 on Blagoy Ivanov.
I knew you would. That's obvious.
I've been singing his praises for a long time, and I think there are a lot of questions about Junior Dos Santos at this point. He hasn't been in the cage for a long time. When does he get old? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's the thing you got to wonder. Hasn't put together 2 wins in a row since 2011 and 12. Part of that's because he can't get in a damn cage. He's taken a year off here. He hasn't fought more than once a year since 2013. But let's hear what the pros think.
Junior's going to win. I think potentially he's probably going to knock him out in a 5-round fight. And I saw the other guy fight in World Series, and he's kind of sloppy, and he's going to get as those rounds go on, and assuming they get to the second, third, fourth round, whatever, the technique goes out the window. I think Junior Santos is too fast. He's too athletic, and he has too good a takedown defense for this guy to really do much. I think the only thing he can really do is maybe land a big overhand or something like that. But I see Junior winning pretty easily.
I don't know much about the Borgoño, but I mean, I'm just a super fan of JDS since the beginning. I've been a fan of JDS forever, so I'm a root for him. But I don't know much about this kid. He could be walking into the bus. If they're giving him JDS and nobody heard his name, it's got to be for a reason.
Yeah, I don't know too much about the guy, but he has a pretty good record, so he can't be a bum, obviously. That one, I'm going to reserve the right to not pick right now because I don't have any information. It should be a good fight for Junior. He's been gone for like a year now. But it's a good one for him to get the ring rust off,
The Junior's fighting the guy that is making his UFC debut. Although I think he's a lifelong Sambo expert, and he also beat Fedor in Sambo. Never heard of him. There's no way I could pick against Junior Dos Santos because of that. So he might crush Junior, who knows, but I'm going with my man Junior.
Junior's 10, a suspect. So I'm going to go. I don't even know how to pronounce the other guy's name.
Dos Santos. I love Dos Santos. Oh, yeah, dude. People sleep on his hands, man. He's a sick boxer.
I think if Junior Dos Santos, shows up, good camp behind him, healthy, I see him winning. But I don't know. They're heavyweights. They hit hard. Whoever lands the first clean shot could be the winner.
Almost nobody giving Ivanov a chance because they don't know who he is. My favorite was, I can't remember who it was that said that he might have trouble getting down Junior Dos Santos. He beat Fedor in combat Sambo. We'll see. I'm excited for the fight. Can't wait for it. But that's not the only set of shows this weekend, and I'll be talking more about these on the post show I do this weekend. Bellator's got a couple of shows. Steve Cazzola, who's a hard-hitting guy on the prelims. Gerald Harris on the prelims against a 19-0 opponent. I'm looking for big performances there. But Chris Honeycutt, Dudu Dantes against Michael McDonald. And then you have a title fight, Julia Budd against Talita Nogueira. That's a pretty damn solid show for Bellator.
Well, the co-main. First of all, those two prelims fights are going to be fantastic. Especially Gerald Harris is going to have his hands full. Let's not even kill ourselves, okay? The co-main event between Dantas and McDonald. Really, I mean, hopefully McDonald doesn't injure himself, but
exactly,
this is going to be fantastic.
I'm surprised he's fighting this soon after his first fight, because I thought for sure we were looking at another 16 to 18 months.
Yeah, and then of course Julia Budd, defending her title. We saw what happened in her last fight. It was just a bunch of Lance Gibson basically saying, "What are you doing? Fight!
Yeah,
fight!" And, if Talita Nogueira puts the pressure, we don't know what happened with Julia leading up to this fight or leading up to that fight. What happened on fight day mentally, blah, blah, just not being able to pull the trigger. But by all accounts, Talita Nogueira is no joke. If she tries to bully Julia Budd, she can take that title. Now, if the old Julia Budd shows up, it's going to be a fantastic fight. Let's not kid ourselves, right? But we just don't know based on what we saw in the last performance.
You got to get Nogueira to the fight, though. That's the thing. They were supposed to fight in 2015. This fight was supposed to happen 3.5 years ago.
Right.
And Nogueira had a knee injury, and she wasn't even scheduled. I mean, Nogueira's been under Bellator contract since 2014, and she's had one fight. Think about that.
I know. 2014,
because in 2016, she was supposed to fight Marloes Coenen. She missed weight. Then she was supposed to fight, I think, August of last year, and Gabrielle Holloway pulled out, but fortunately they were able to get Amanda Bell in there. And beating Amanda Bell got her a title fight. Yep. Okay, now, all due respect to Amanda Bell, I remember her. She was beating all the horsewomen. She was beating like Jessamine Duke, and she beat Marina Shafir. She beat some of those girls. But I don't think that gets you a title fight. I think Julia Budd's going to win this. But, man, she's got to do something to stand out. Dantas and McDonald, I'm excited for. Chris Honeycutt, excited for. Those Bellator prospects are working out. Their process is working out. We saw it recently. Ed Ruth and Tyrell Fortune win again. And they're not just winning and beating people they shouldn't beat. They're looking good. And that I appreciate. So the next night, you already see it, don't you? You got it pulled up, don't you?
Yeah.
Why don't you brief us?
One of the many favorite Pitbull brothers of Sean
who we
Ross
have
Sapp.
an exclusive interview with on Fightful.com. I always like to surprise you by putting that as the main event of our show when it happens. But it was too heavy on the translation. I couldn't. But he's facing Daniel Weichel. God almighty, stop booking him in rematches. Andrei Koreshkov is on this show, too. I hope Pitbull wins so he doesn't have to fight Weichel again. Alessia Sakara on the show again, too. I'll talk about those fights on the Boise post show. It's going to be a fun time. I am really excited for the Boise shows, but whew. And here's a little, not breaking news. Ronda Rousey gives her take on Daniel Cormier. She says, right now, I think he is the best in the game. That's high praise. High praise.
I don't think he's the best in the game, but it is high praise. I think she's bang on.
I think Mighty Mouse is the best in the game.
Yes, sir. Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson, who I'm sure everyone is thinking, why didn't this fight with TJ Dillashaw take place? But Cody Garbrandt got it. Obviously, this is negotiations behind the scenes with the UFC, but Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson is, pound for pound, the best fighter in the sport, in my opinion, right now.
I don't think there's any way that Dillashaw versus Mighty Mouse, no matter what they paid Mighty Mouse, the amount of profit they would have made off of that pay-per-view as opposed to the pay-per-view they're putting on next month, I look at that and I'm like, come on now. Come on now. You could have done Garbrandt and Marias on the co-main. Who's Mighty Mouse fighting next month?
Henry
Cejudo. Okay, fine. All due respect to him. You put him on there on the undercard against anybody. All of a sudden, you've got a decent-looking show. What is this show? UFC 227? I'm going to take a glance at it. Here's the thing. I don't even look at most UFC shows until 2 weeks out for obvious reasons. For obvious reasons. Now, keep in mind, I will be I will be out of town that night, so I might have to get James Lynch to do a post show. But the show right now has Dillashaw Garbrandt, Cejudo Johnson, Gustafsson Ozdemir, Swanson Moicano, Shoeface against TBD because Brunson pulled out of it. So we don't know how that'll work. Munoz against Brett Johns, that's a decent one. Betch Kohea against Irene Aldana, whatever. So it's gonna be one of those shows that has a decent main card because I think that's a hell of a top 3. And Viana against JJ Aldrich, that's a good fight too. Decent.
I just can't wait to see Betch Correa. Not gonna lie to you.
Oh, piss off.
Come on, you love her.
Piss off.
She is so funny.
I mean, kinda.
Awesome. Yeah. So, but
when she
Aldana's
takes a
not
nap
good.
on the Straight Outta Compton logo. That is one of the most iconic things ever. Man, I have never seen such a bad fighter make it so far. And she did it. She did it by beating horsewomen too.
Yeah.
Had she not beat the horsewomen and a retiring Julie Kedzie, well, she owes Julie Kedzie some royalties.
Oh boy.
Because she got her first win over Julie Kedzie, and people were like, whoa, she beat Julie Kedzie. And Julie Kedzie, man, I love the woman. There are few people as entertaining, as funny as her. But, I mean, Kedzie was riding a 3-fight losing streak and was on her way out. It was her last fight.
Yep.
And she
She's
beat a Baszler and Duke who were crippled by Edmund Taverdian and his training. And what have we seen since then? She lost to Rousey, lost to Pennington, drew with Marion Reneau. Reneau should have won that fight. Got her head knocked off by Holly Holm and won a split decision over Jessica Ai. And by God damn it, I'll let Jessica Ai's own words speak for how things should reflect on that. Hoo boy. Betch Kohea. How did we get this far? How did we fall this far? Joe, it's been 2 years since Fightful launched. Our birthday was this week. I'll never forget. I met you that week, and you said, how long do you think this show will last? Probably an hour. I think we went 2 hours that night.
Yep.
Talking MMA because I think there were 3 events that week.
That week was crazy. Yep.
3 events that week. I can say this. This International Fight Week was not that International Fight Week.
No. This was the only good thing about this International Fight Week was the main event for the TUF finale, and everything UFC 226 minus the co-main event, right? But what Daniel Cormier did, and the way he did it, and some of the other fighters whew. I feel like I haven't recovered yet. The high is still there. Every time I think of DC, I get a big smile on my face. Right? The guy's just fantastic. So,
Fightful MMA has your hookup. I believe the Fightful MMA Industry Podcast is back this week. I think. FightfulSelect.com. Head over there, check it out. I'm doing the UFC rankings breakdown when that drops. Also, I've been posting some articles, early access. You had the James Vick and the Gerald Harris interviews up early. Check it out. Guys, until next time, we're out. By the way, we will get this up on YouTube later. We're out.